back, ladies and gentlemen. It has been quite some time, Connor. It's been quite a long time, but we've decided to make a comeback on the Movie Mates podcast, and we're back with a movie that we had planned to do quite a while ago, but we wanted to do it for this first podcast back, Connor, and that's My Neighbor Totoro. And this was a movie chosen by Connor. This is a movie that I had no idea. Honestly, I had no idea what this was, so this was definitely something different for me. And it's Japanese, so definitely something. It's a foreign film, so definitely something a lot different. And it's animated, so a lot of it's very unique in terms of like genre and like movie type, right? So I don't know, Connor, what made you want to choose this movie?
Yeah, so back when I originally chose this movie, I think it was sometime maybe in
It might have
when
been
did
back in
we even
September.
okay, yeah, it's been a long time.
It's
It's
been
been
quite a while.
wow, okay.
Yep.
Um
Hmm.
well, one of the reasons that I chose this movie, first of all, is I watched it actually a lot as a kid. And I didn't even know what anime was pretty much until I was like, in middle school, maybe even high school. Because like it wasn't like something that like my family or my friends like talked about or anything like that. But I
Yeah.
remember watching this movie as a kid,
Mm.
and you know, it was made back in the 80s, which is actually like I think it kind of pioneered a lot of this animation style and stuff like that.
Mm.
But I remember really liking it when I was a kid, and my siblings, we always watched like the English dubbed version.
Mm.
And I think we just like the characters, like the two little girls and
Mm.
also Totoro himself, right? He's very
Yes.
lovable.
Yep.
But I just remember really liking it as a kid, and I know a lot of people who like to watch you know um, movies that are like anime style, I guess, or
Sure.
especially movies that are from Studio Ghibli, which I think is the studio that
Mm.
produced this. Yeah, this is like a really highly thought of film,
Hmm.
and a lot of different like film circles or anime circles or just fans of entertainment. Most people seem to like this film, and I remember liking it as a kid, so I wanted to come back to it as an adult and see what I thought of it, and I wanted to see what Ryan thought of it.
Yeah.
And so we'll be delivering our thoughts.
No, yeah.
um,
So, I mean, I don't know. So going to this movie, I don't know. I've never been the biggest like anime or just anime like just animation in general fan. I don't know. I've always kind of been apprehensive to watch like foreign films only because I feel like when it's in other languages, sometimes it's hard to there's subtitles and all, but sometimes it's hard to convey like or like understand like the exact emotion that's being like put through in like the acting. So I don't know, especially when there's like English dubbed over instead of like the original language. Connor, we talked about this
right.
like kind of previously, but that's kind of it's sometimes it's hard to get the same emotion or like to get the same reaction that the original movie wanted. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
and I think that's just an inherent like
Yeah.
issue that you come across when translating like language in general, right? Like
Mm.
if I'm reading like a book and it was originally written in Spanish, even though like the words are translated, or if it was written in like Mandarin
Yeah.
or something, even though the words are translated, like I'm never gonna actually like, unless I actually learn that language and I can read it in that language, but I'm not getting the exact same thing that the author
Sure.
like wrote and intended for me. And the same thing goes with like a movie and stuff, right? You're
Mm.
not getting the exact same like words, even though the translation is there.
Yeah.
Languages aren't like directly correlated where it's perfectly word for word.
No,
It's
yeah, of
just like,
course. It doesn't well, it doesn't flow the same when it's another language. That's just kind
yeah.
of right. That's kind of how it is. So it's
Hmm.
when you listen to like a dubbed version of a movie and like you hear like the actual like English of something that's supposed to be Japanese in this case or like Korean or something like that. It just doesn't it doesn't always like feel this exactly the same. So yeah, but I don't know this movie, Connor. We can kind of get into the start of this movie and
Yeah.
you know uh, they right they show up uh the father and his two kids, right? They show up to this new town, this new
Yeah.
like they just
They've moved
arrived.
into the country basically,
Yep.
or but before
Yeah.
we actually like dive too deep into it, I just want to address a couple things, which
Of course.
is first of all, um I'm currently eating right now. We're doing this at dinner time, so don't let my eating and drinking milk distract you from what we're talking about. And then the other thing is that if you're wondering where Greg is, he's really busy right now, and you know
Oh yes.
he's doing a lot of stuff. He's getting involved, but he wishes us well in our endeavors here with the podcast. and he still loves movies. Don't.
Yes. No, yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, no, Greg's just gotten really busy. It's good that you just, brought that up real quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he wasn't sure if he had the time like consistently to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah. But
But
we're here and we're talking about Totoro.
yes,
So
yes, we are. And I don't know, Connor. This movie started out like I don't know. Throughout this whole movie, there was a lot of I feel like, and this might go with this type of genre of movie, but I feel like there was a lot of big swings of emotion, right? I don't know. That's just kind of the way I felt. Like, a lot of times you'd feel very like,
okay.
maybe it's just like, how like May, the little girl, like she'd always like, be very, she'd exclaim really loudly, or she'd be very happy, or she'd be very like sad. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just that,
Yeah.
but like, I felt there was a lot of like you could really feel like the changes in emotion a lot of times. Maybe I'm kind of uh,
Right.
misrepresenting
Right.
that, but
Well, yeah, I think that that comes down a lot in part to the fact that it's told from like a child's perspective, sort of, right?
sure.
And that's how like kids like are experience emotions, right? Like they don't have as much control, or like when we were kids, we didn't have as much control
Hmm.
over like how we were feeling all the time, and your mood
Yeah.
can like change like that based on what's happening right in front of you.
Hmm.
And I think that we don't see a lot of movies like that because like it's easier for adults to understand like a more consistent like this is the tone of this movie.
Hmm.
And I don't know. We can talk about whether it was good or bad to have those kind of emotional
Yeah.
swings and stuff like that. But I don't know. I think for this, it was an interesting change from like the typical way
Yeah.
movies are presented, and I think that it works really well, at least for the story, like about like two little girls. I don't know.
No, sure. No, yeah. So I mean, it starts off like right. They first get to this like kind of rural like, town, right? They moved out. I
Yes.
know the father
Yes.
works in Tokyo, correct? He works at a
Yeah.
university, I believe, right?
Yeah.
But they show up and they go to this really old house. This
Yeah. And when they're driving there, I don't know, like they're just
Mhm.
their cars like loaded up, like, and they're like
Yeah.
under a desk basically.
I remember writing it down actually. Like this car is super. Like, it's really full. Like, there's a lot of stuff in this car.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely. And like the first thing you notice obviously is the house is just it's really old, right?
Hmm.
But I don't know when like what I mean when there's a lot of emotion. Like when they get there, like just something else I wrote down. Like I was like the kids seem really like they still seem like really happy. Like they just like they're running around. There's so much maybe so much energy. Like there's so much energy in these
Yeah.
kids, and I guess
Yeah.
that's like reflective of kids in general. Like.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that when you get introduced
Mhm.
to these two girls, May and Saskia, I think that's how you say her name, right?
I think so, yeah.
Saskia.
Yeah.
Um,
Sasuke, yeah.
um, like you see them in the truck at the house, and you kind of get like a real feel for like who they are, like right up front. Like you're like,
Mm,
these are just kids who like want to have fun, basically,
mm.
and they're just enjoying like seeing all these new things. Because like I remember when I was a kid, like seeing new things was like the best thing in the world because you're like, whoa, like this is so cool and different.
Yeah. Yeah, of
And
course.
especially if you're like with your sibling, like, and I think
Mm,
that the way that they did it with, especially at the beginning of the film, like you could see like with the animation and the writing and the
mm.
acting all together, it really made them feel like real kids. Like even though
It
it
did.
was animated, right? They felt
Yeah.
like they were like real girls.
Well, what I like about the two girls is like I just think that the bond between the two siblings or the two
Mhm.
sisters like it's just it's really strong. At least you can especially see that in specific parts of the movie, and this part
Right.
like I'm specifically thinking of is the end, and we'll get to that later. But like I feel like throughout the whole movie you can just kind of you can just it's just cool to see like the bond between the sisters and like
Yeah.
they're you said like right they're both when they're together both they see new things and it's like really like with your sibling it's really cool
Yeah. Yeah.
right
I mean, obviously
it
this
kind of
movie's
plays
about
into that.
yeah, this movie's about a lot of things, but I think
It
like
is.
sisterhood is one of those things that's
Yes.
about in it.
No, yeah, 100%. So I thought
Yeah.
that was I think that's kind of cool but
Yeah. But the house, I mean, we can talk about the house
yeah,
for
we
a
can talk
little
about
bit
the
if you
house.
want. Yeah.
So when they get to the house, right? They get to the house, and they start looking around, right? The kids, of course, and they see uh, like these like black bugs, I suppose, is
Yeah, they're like
how you
puffballs,
want to.
sort of, kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the best way to phrase it, and they scurried away like as soon as they saw them, right? But they see them a few times, and they get very they get very scared and justifiably so. I think May, the younger sister, was the one that saw them first, and then I think so. And then they both saw them at a later point. But
Yeah.
I thought it was. At first, like I thought we were gonna get into some like really like creepy movie, you know what I mean? Like it's gonna be some sort of
Mm,
like super haunted house,
yeah,
like that's what's going on here. But obviously you come to find out that I believe, right? You get these like black like bugs to like scurry away if like you're like laughing, I believe is what it was, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
then they them and later on, soon after, like them and their dad were just like sitting. I think they were playing together and they were just like laughing. They started laughing at some of the bugs.
yeah. In
That's
the
how the
tub
bugs
when
got
they're in the
out.
bathtub.
Yep,
Yeah,
when they're in the tub. Yeah.
I really actually like their bathroom, by the way. Like they had the covers on the tubs, and there was two different sizes. I like that. That was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. But I thought that was kind
Um,
of I don't know. What do you think about that? I thought that was very
yeah,
strange.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, like I have seen this movie before, obviously when I was a kid. So when
Sure.
I rewatched it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Hmm.
And one scene that really stood out to me was the one where May was alone and she was trying to catch that one
Mm.
puffball, right? Or like
Oh
that
yeah.
one little, what do they call them? I
I
forget what they call them.
I don't remember. I think didn't they call them like soot spreaders? Is that what it was? I
Oh, it
don't
was like
know.
soot sprites or something
I
like
think
that.
that's what it was. Something
Yeah,
like
so
that.
she's like
Yeah.
with one of the soot sprites and it's like floating down and
Yeah.
she's like ready and she like
Yeah.
smashes it like this and
Yeah.
she's like, I've got one and she's like
Yeah.
running down. I don't know why that scene just sticks with me, but it's like it
Hmm.
like captures like May's character,
Yes.
but it
But
also like
but
kind of spurs the story along too, right? Because it's like this is the beginning of like it's like the inciting like incident almost where it's like, oh, they have to find out what this is about. Like this is has to
mm,
do this is gonna drive the story. These like creatures that are like not part of
yeah.
our world
Yeah. No,
normally. You
right.
know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And I don't know, like, so this whole, right, the whole, like, the soot spreaders or soot sprites or whatever, what would you call
Yeah.
them? Yeah. That was, kind of strange, kind of interesting, I guess. But then I still thought, like, there was something weird about the house because I think soon after this, right, we get introduced, or there's a boy that comes to the house and, like, runs away from it or something, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead, and I apologize if I am.
No, no, this is fine. This is fine.
But I just remember him like kind of running away from it, and I think like someone said something about like he thinks like the like some people think the house is haunted
Oh
or
yeah, he
something.
said like, "Hey, your house is haunted,"
Yeah. Oh,
because
he
maybe it
yelled it.
has. Yeah, yeah, and maybe that had something to do with like those soot sprites, or like
Yeah.
people knew like there's
Yeah.
something up with this house, or
Yeah.
um, yeah, and I think what was the old woman's name?
I don't remember, but didn't they just call her like the granny, right?
Oh yeah, they just called her like Granny or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But
I remember her saying she saw those things when she was younger too.
yeah, I think she
Um,
did mention that.
and I guess they are kind of like strange at first when you see them
They're
because it's
kind of weird.
like it kind of makes you think like, oh, is this like is their house actually haunted and like
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Exactly. Hmm.
And I think that goes back to like the child's perspective thing because that's probably
Yes.
what they were the little girls would be thinking like, oh, I saw these things like the house is haunted like
Hmm.
and I was gonna say like that might also be some like Western conditioning based off like movies that we've watched. Like,
Maybe.
oh, if something's fishy in the house, this is gonna be like a suspense movie or something. You know what I mean?
No, for
Like,
sure. Oh yeah, no doubt.
yeah.
But
But
wait, sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say that I do agree with you that it was kind of weird to see those soot sprites, um, and but I kind of just like forget about them like after the movie. Like I feel like the
Sure.
movie is like about them so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
no, for sure. It was definitely just like a kind of like the first part of the movie thing. It definitely like it
mhm.
wasn't like a thing back in like the middle or the back half of the back third of the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
But one more thing on them before we move on. Connor, you mentioned that this movie is kind of like it's from the kid's perspective, right? It's from a child's perspective more so than from like an adult's perspective or like a kind of like a bird's eye view perspective, which more some movies are like. And uh, I kind of feel like, correct me if I think the father didn't see the soot spreaders, correct?
I don't think so, but
I don't think he did.
he was a very supportive father though.
He
Like,
was. No, yeah, we can talk about that
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. Like,
he was never like, oh no, that's not real, or like,
yes.
oh, like just go do like your schoolwork or whatever. He
Hmm.
was like encouraging them to,
Well, he played along with it in like a like a good like reasonable way, right? Like when they
yeah,
saw
yeah,
Totoro and he didn't he didn't. He played along. Was like, oh, like we can talk about this later in a few minutes, but he's like, oh, well, something about like the woods spirits or something, like the forest spirits or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Like
the spirits of
they
the
don't want you to see
forest.
them right now, yeah, or something like that.
Yeah, and I remember like
Mm,
when Sasuke's at school and the dad's like doing some work from home
mm,
because there's nobody to take care of May and she's like just out exploring
yeah,
and stuff. And he's like, "Oh, where are you going?" And she said like, "Oh, I'm like off to do whatever." And he's like, "Oh, okay, whatever."
yeah,
Like or even when they're in the bath and they tell him about the soot sprites and he's like, "Oh, I think you have to make him laugh or something. You have to
yeah,
laugh."
yeah.
Um but he was just always like he's the kind of dad you want, especially if your mom's in the hospital and he has to be like a single
Mm.
father, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, yeah. But I thought it was interesting because like no adult saw the soot spreaders, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah, that's
the
true.
granny said she saw them when she was a child, right? Like when she
Yeah,
was younger.
yeah. And
And
no
then
adults saw Totoro or those
exactly.
other rabbit things
That's
either.
what I was getting to exactly. So a lot of these things that, you know, the children see that like that the movie's centered around, like adults don't see.
Right,
So it's
right.
very, you know, it's a very unique kind of, you know, thing
Yeah,
going on.
yeah.
And
And it
yeah,
obviously and you can kind of see that from the beginning of the movie too. Like you
yeah,
understand like this is gonna be something like it's kind of like a magical thing that only kids can see. And a lot of
yeah,
times you have that sometimes in films where it's like, oh, only kids can see it. Like, is it real or are they just imagining it? You know what I mean?
yep.
And I feel like this movie kind of answers that by the end, but I don't know if you want to have it.
It kind of does. Yeah, we get
Yeah.
well, maybe I don't know what you're talking about. We can get into that as we go
Okay,
back half the movie.
okay.
But what this reminds me of, we can move on in just a second, is this whole idea of like, you know, children like only be able like pretty much children only be able to see these things. Reminds me of Polar Express, which I used to watch a ton as a kid. Even with like the
I was thinking of that movie as I was
yeah,
talking. Yeah.
with the bell, right? And you can
Yes.
only hear it if
Yes.
you still believe in the spirit of Christmas and believe in Santa and everything about Christmas. And you know, I just thought that was really cool because you're right. Like it's definitely a unique thing, and not a lot of movies kind of take this sort of like, you know, angle or approach. And like that's just kind of one of the first things I thought of. So that was
Yeah.
kind of neat.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I thought that was kind of neat. But I mean, Connor, if it's okay, we can move on to something, you know, a little further down the line in the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, sure, sure.
I don't know if you have anything specific, but I was gonna bring up the mother kind of and like what like and like the story going on
Yeah,
with
because I think we
that.
get it. They go to
Yeah,
visit her like
I think we
fairly
do.
early on. They go to visit her. Yeah.
They do, yeah. And I think right off the bat, like they go to the hospital on a bike, I believe, which is a long
Yes.
bike ride. I think later in the movie they say like it's a 3 hour walk, like for an
Yeah.
adult. So like a bike ride, it's like at least like an hour and a half, I would say, or an hour
Yeah. A bike
at
ride. Yeah,
least.
I would say like cuts the time, but maybe in half, but not much more than
Especially
that. You know what I
with
mean? Like
two, yeah, especially with
with two
two
girls on it.
girls.
Were they both riding the bike? They were both on the
I
bike
think
with
they
the
were.
dad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were.
Yeah.
So that was, you know, obviously like that's a kind of a far bike ride. But anyway, I
Yeah.
remember they go to the hospital and the doctor says like, you know, mom will be home soon. But like I remember distinctly the kids saying that like they always say that the doctor always says, oh, you know, the mom will be home soon. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like to me, that immediately was like, okay, well, you know, the mom must not be doing so well. You know, like
Yeah.
maybe she's
Yeah.
not really
I mean, also, I think that because I don't know if you ever had like one of your parents in the hospital when you were a kid, but I
sure.
remember having my mom in the hospital a couple of times.
Yeah, my mom's been a
Um,
couple times, yeah,
yeah,
when I was a kid.
and like it always felt like that to me as a kid, where it was like, when's mom's coming home? Like you
Oh,
said,
for
she was
sure.
coming home soon, and
Yeah.
I think that just speaks to like the way that kids perceive time a little bit,
Hmm.
and also like I was gonna say that the mom didn't seem super sick. I mean, and they didn't really talk much about her illness.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like we got about as much understanding as like May and Saskia did. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, yeah,
And
of course.
like it seems like such a big deal to you, like that your parent is sick when you're a kid, and
Mm.
like even though it might not seem like that to us now, like oh, like
You
just because
know,
you're in a hospital doesn't mean you're gonna die,
sure.
but to a kid it's like a big deal, especially when it's your mom. You know?
Well, to a kid, it's a big deal because you hear the word hospital and you think, okay, like, why do you go to a hospital? And you think you go to a hospital if you're like really sick,
Really
right?
sick,
And if
yeah,
you're really sick, then you never like you don't know.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, definitely. I like, you know, you're right. Like, it's interesting how you just constantly see this from the child's perspective, and you see like, you know, kind of the doubt slash hopefulness that you see in the kids, right? Like they believe their mom's going to come home when the doctor says. They believe the doctor because he's a doctor, right? But they also, there's some doubt in the back of their minds, right? Because they know the doctor said that before and it didn't happen. And like, is that really true what the doctor's saying to them? Maybe not. So,
Yeah.
you're right. We don't really ever know. But you're right. I know like when
Yeah, but I mean,
parents,
you're also right that like there's that seed of doubt, like the doctor always says
yeah,
that, and we kind of get that as the audience too,
yeah,
which I think kind of like raises the stakes a little bit for us as viewers.
of
Even though
course.
this is a story about kids, like you still kind of have to have those like stakes and stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's interesting because, I think because it's from the perspective of kids and children, it kind of, and this goes back to what I said about emotions, like a lot of like drastic emotions seemingly. I feel like, in this case with the mom, like talking about the doubt, like because it's from this perspective, you almost go to the kid's perspective in terms of like the hopefulness, but also the doubt in the back of your head, like, oh, well, she's not doing so well, but oh, the doctor said she'd
Yeah,
come home. So like, I don't know, it's kind of
yeah,
interesting, just kind
hmm
of like having that perspective.
yeah, yeah, and it kind of takes you, at least for me, I thought that it did a pretty good job, considering like, it's an animated film where I feel like with animated films it's a little bit harder to like portray that emotion,
Mm,
and I think this film did like a good job of keeping the audience there with the characters and their emotions and how they were feeling. Because I
sure.
know like there are parts where I'm like, oh no, this part's coming up, like this is a sad part or something, because I had
Yeah.
watched it before and stuff. So
Yeah. No, yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, definitely you've seen it before. So that is, a little bit of a different perspective. But um yeah, I don't know. It's just very interesting how you get a bunch of different emotions based on like what storyline you're kind of going after, right? So like with the mom,
yeah,
it's so much different from the rest of the movie. And
yeah. I mean,
you know
I
what I
have a
mean?
question real quick for
Yeah, of
you,
course.
which is like, who do you think is the protagonist of the story?
I mean, does there have to be one
Yeah,
necessarily?
but you know what I mean? Like it follows May and Sasuke sort of.
Exactly. Yeah, it follows both of them, right?
Yeah,
It follows both of them. I think Sasuke. If I had to, no, yeah, I would say. I feel like it changes at different parts of the movie. It
yeah.
changes, is what it
Like in the
does.
middle, it's more with May, right?
In
Because it's trying to get you
yes,
into her headspace a little bit.
in the middle,
And
I think May is more the protagonist because we can get into this now, kind of. We can kind of move into this now, which is like May starts to go into the forest, right? And she's
right, because before then, like pretty much they're together like the whole first bit of the
exactly
movie, and
the
then now they've split off. Sasuke has school,
yep.
and and then you have kind of two different like little plot lines going along at the same time, right?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So like, cause right, the two of them were together, and even the father was there with them for the vast majority, like the first part of that movie.
Mhm.
And then now you're right, they split up, and so they focus a lot on May in the middle part of the movie. So she's someone that is just kind of the main character for that part, and then at the end, obviously Sasuke becomes I think like the main protagonist with like trying to find her sister,
Right,
and we can
right.
get into that, but.
Yeah, we can talk about May going into the forest if you want.
Yeah, let's talk about
Um,
that. So, May obviously goes into the forest. She kind of just wanders off, right? I think her father said like she could go play, and she, kind of
yeah,
just wandered off by herself.
and she saw that little white mini Totoro guy,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's what kind of like made her
And then
go into the forest. Yeah,
yep, she followed him down the path, right? And I think it was weird because I know a lot of the stuff, and you could argue like we can get into this, but like a lot of the stuff I think was all imaginary, and that's like kind of, or it's like, you know, just kind of like things only kids can see. You can kind of think about which one's which. But
yeah.
the I remember writing down that like I think it was the little one, the thing it turned invisible, like, or like she
Oh
couldn't,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right, like when it was running like away from her. So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, like it's like this thing really turned invisible. Is it even there? I don't know. And then she runs all the way to that big tree, right? I think, and then she
She
fell,
falls.
right?
She falls down like in the roots, almost sort
Hmm.
of like.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh boy, of course of course she falls down. And then you finally, she falls onto something,
Yes.
not the ground. She falls onto an animal,
Yes.
and it turned out to be Totoro, right? So this
Yeah.
is, obviously, I guess it's the main part of the movie, and I was I was surprised like by like by the look of Totoro. I don't know. It was very.
Really?
I mean, he was just he was just massive, but he was
Yeah,
just
he
kind of like.
was.
I kept expecting him to like do something like jarring, but it didn't.
He was massive, but he wasn't scary. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, and I kept expecting him to be, and I don't know if that's like you can go back to the kind of conditioning of like at the beginning of the movie, like, oh, is this gonna be a horror movie? I don't know if it's conditioning from like movies that I'm used to watching, but when you
Yeah,
see something that massive, it's just like I don't know, you think that he's gonna like just something's
that's
gonna
true.
happen, like something
And I
quick.
don't really remember. Was she scared when she? I think she was more
No,
fascinated
I
when,
I
right? She
wrote
was like,
I actually wrote down like wow, like May has no fear, even though this thing is massive, is exactly what I wrote. And I was like, I was surprised. Like, I mean, I guess in children, right? Sometimes like they have different emotions than a normal person would have in a
yeah,
situation. Like I'm sure if like the father fell onto that thing, he'd be like probably
yeah.
react a lot
Well, I was
differently.
thinking even Saskia would probably be scared, right? Like,
Probably.
because she has a little bit of a more older child perspective,
Well,
and
I mean, you can actually go to the bus stop, right? And we can talk
yeah,
about that
when she
next.
first meets him,
But I
yes,
mean, she had a different reaction. I would a little bit, I would say.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, she did.
but anyway, like
Um,
you're right. She was definitely fascinated. May was, and I don't know. Did you
yeah.
want to say something about, when she first saw him?
Well, I just wanted to say it was interesting how like they came up with the name Totoro because like he was just like roaring or whatever, and she was like, Totoro, your name's
Oh,
Totoro. You know what I mean? And also
yeah,
like she roars back at him, her mouth gets like so huge
I
and
know.
stuff.
Yeah,
And so
yeah, yeah.
then that's when you can like see the anime style coming in, which
Of
is not,
course.
it's not my favorite style of animation, but like,
Mm.
it works for this, for like a scene like this, I guess.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll get into like my thoughts on this anime like at the end, just kind of
Right? Yeah. When you
because
talk about,
going in, I'm
yeah.
never So I don't know. I thought it was overall, honestly, like I would say it was pretty well done. I would say,
Mhm.
especially for a late '80s film. I think it was '88. I don't know if that
Yeah.
was right or not. I believe it was '88.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely well done at the very least. But I know Totoro then proceeds to drop her off right where Sasuke could find her because I think that's what happened.
Okay. Yeah. I couldn't remember if she just fell asleep and woke up somewhere.
Maybe, but if she fell asleep and woke up somewhere, well, I guess, yeah. I guess if she
Yeah.
fell asleep and woke up somewhere, wouldn't Totoro have dropped her off? I don't know. Maybe it was
Yeah.
just,
Maybe. I don't know.
or maybe it was in
I don't
her,
know.
or it was in her imagination. I guess
Or
you
she
you
got
don't
like
really know.
teleported or something. I don't know.
It's absolute magic. But all I
Yeah.
know is I remember, she wanted to show her dad and Sasuke, right?
Yes.
Totoro, and she wanted to show them, the path that led to it. And she goes and shows them the path. And the path just was a circle. And she goes through it. I believe she goes through it twice. And she
Yeah.
was confused the first time, and she goes through again. And she comes out the other side.
And they start laughing.
And then they start laughing, and I think the father realized like, oh, I don't want to laugh like too much, right? So then he goes on with the thing about the forest spirits, like they don't want to see you, right?
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
go on remember they go on
And
the trek, right? So
yeah, and they go to the tree, and like here's a point that I want to point out is that
yeah, of course.
when they go to the tree, May recognizes it, right?
Mm.
So she has seen it before.
Yeah, yeah.
So she definitely took the path to the tree, right? The path didn't go in a circle for her the first time
Oh,
because she recognizes it. Am I right?
I
Like,
mean, I think you're right, but what if she just what if from her I don't know, what if she misremembers the path she took? I mean, maybe that might be a
maybe. I
dumb,
mean, it could also just be a
you know,
child's imagination, right? That's like,
it could
oh,
also
this is
be.
the tree. Like I remember,
See
like,
that, but that's the interesting thing, right? Because you get a lot of, there's a lot of different kind of options or like different, perspectives you could have on like
yeah. It's like how reliable is
what
your
actually
narrator?
happened.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I think you get pretty quickly that the narrator is either not reliable or everyone else isn't reliable, and I think you can kind of assume or get to the point that like probably the
Or
narrator.
I mean, it could be the same. They could both be reliable. Like it's a possibility, right? They
It is a
just,
possibility. See, there's multiple
but that
possibilities.
just means magic. That's what that
Exactly.
means.
Yeah. So there's really three different possibilities there.
Yeah.
And you don't really know which one is right, I don't think, unless
Yeah.
you
I mean, I think it's pretty much up to the viewer, except
it
for
is.
one scene that I want to talk about at the
Okay.
end, but we'll get
I know what you're
there.
I think I know what you're gonna say. But we'll talk about it when we get to the end. So yeah,
Yeah.
then this happens, and I thought it was cool that we've talked about this. I thought it was cool that the father, did what he did, and he,
Yeah.
it was good, right? Because then you
That's also the
obviously
first time that we see May like get upset, right? Is when
yes.
she's like, stop laughing. And like,
Yeah, and then
yeah.
he knew like okay, like I don't want to keep laughing, because obviously she was like already on edge or already kind of angry that she couldn't show her family members like something really cool that she saw.
Yeah.
But then shortly thereafter, right, we see uh, ends up going to school with Sasuke, right? I think because she wanted to
Yeah.
be with the granny, and
Which I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like, my
I don't.
siblings sometimes did stuff like that when they were young. Like,
Yeah, no, yeah, of
I won't do
course.
this unless you know what I mean. So,
No, yeah, like just stubborn for what's seemingly from a different perspective for like no apparent reason, but from their perspective,
yeah.
like a super justified reason. So yeah, and Sasuke kind of rolled with it. She's like, okay, that's my teacher, and stay. And it wasn't really a big deal. But then we move on to shortly after,
They're
they
walking home.
they go. Yeah, well, I was gonna go to like when they walk to go look at their father.
Wait, what?
They go to get their father at the bus stop.
Oh, yeah, but before that, they're walking home and it starts raining. And
Oh,
the kid gives him the umbrella.
oh yeah. And then I remember May like fell or something. It was just she
Yeah, well,
fell.
I just thought it was interesting because,
Hmm.
I mean, we can talk about it later, but like the role of that boy, like I'm interested in hearing what you think he had to do with the larger story at the end. You know what I mean? Like,
The boy that like you mean the same boy who helped them like look for May at the
yeah,
end, like
yeah,
kid on the bike. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Maybe like I didn't really I didn't really care about the boy that much. If only because he just wasn't he didn't say pretty much anything. Like he didn't say much, I don't think, until the end. He said like one thing about like he was looking for May or something, or like I remember saying like he's like, oh, I we found her shoe, and we'll get to that. But like I remember he
yeah.
said that to Sasuke, but I don't remember him saying that much. And because he didn't say all
Well, I
that
mean, I
much.
think that's like part of his growth, right? Is because at the beginning he couldn't say anything around Sasuke because like she was like a pretty girl or whatever. You know what I mean? It's
Oh
like,
yeah, that's a good point. And then we do see him at school, I believe, right? I think the teacher catches him looking at Sasuke. I believe that was the same
yeah,
boy,
yeah.
right?
And then
And
in this scene,
he
he like
scolds.
shoves the umbrella, and it's like,
Mhm. Yeah, so that is a fair point. I mean, there's a lot of different perspectives in this movie, and I guess you get like kind of like the shy, like like
yeah,
elementary middle school boy, right? That's in there.
mhm, mhm.
Someone who like as the movie goes on becomes more and more comfortable. I would say.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, I just brought him up because I
Yeah,
feel like
sure.
the story could have happened without him. Like you don't need
Yes,
him
for
in the
sure.
story,
Yeah.
but for me, I felt like he did add. Personally, I feel like he added a little bit of something extra. Like I feel like I would have maybe gotten a little bit too like I just felt like he added a bit of color to the
I think
world and
I
like
think
fleshed it out a little bit more.
Well,
You know
I
what I
think
mean?
I think what I like about movies is someone that's relatable in some way. I feel like it's a lot
Yeah.
easier to like a movie if you're connected, or you can understand the mindset or like the thought process of certain characters in the movie or TV show, right?
Yeah.
And when they are able to add someone like that, even a minor character, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely some people, probably quite a few people, who would, kind of, you might laugh or you might like, feel bad for the kid, but a lot of
Yeah,
people
but like I remember
probably
as a
relate to
young
that in some
boy,
way.
yeah,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
could relate
So,
to him, right? Because I'm not a little girl, and seeing
yeah.
like a boy up there on screen,
No, exactly. That's what
like
I'm saying.
yeah,
So, you can relate to like the feelings, like, or like, like
yeah,
looking at
yeah,
a girl in class and getting, or something like that.
yeah, and
Something,
it
or like,
definitely doesn't take away from the story, also, which I thought was a
exactly.
good point to add.
And,
Like
and
it's very supplemental.
and not
So
being able to like interfere with the main like
yeah,
story. Exactly. Yeah. So that, yeah, no, you make a good point. I just, you know some people, right, might not notice him as much as others. I guess it depends, right, on.
yeah, and that's true. He's not necessary. So
Yeah.
that's a
No, yeah, no, it's
definitely for
definitely
sure.
dependent on perspective, but it's, yeah,
Mhm.
he's definitely
Put
a.
a quarter in a jar every time one of us says perspective in this video.
Hey, listen,
Or in
perspective
this
is
podcast,
important.
excuse
Oh
me.
yes, yes, podcast slash video. But anyway, I wanted to,
The bus stop, right?
after this, yes, we go to the bus stop, right? And obviously they're waiting for their dad, and their dad doesn't show up at the first bus. And when their dad didn't show up at the first bus, and I again, looking back now, you feel like, okay, this is definitely because of their perspective of like being kids. But I literally wrote down like, where's their dad, like in all caps.
Like,
I'm like,
did
what
something
happened?
bad
Like,
happen? Yeah,
exactly.
like,
And I remember feeling like this as a kid. Like, I don't know if like anyone else can feel this way, but when I was at home, I go home from school, it's like 6 o'clock, you eat dinner, and it's 7 o'clock, and my dad's not home. And I would always call him.
yeah,
I always call him, like, Dad, when are you getting home? And he always be like, Ryan, you called me 3 times and I was in a meeting, and I'll be home later, okay? But like, you feel something kind of like that in this, in this scene, like at least a little bit. There's a little bit of worry. Will the dad
Yeah.
show up on the next bus? Because I know as a
Hmm.
kid, if you're waiting for your dad at the bus, it's like, you're waiting for
Yeah,
your
and
dad to come
if they
home.
don't show up on the bus, like that's a public thing too. And
Yeah,
now you're by yourself and you don't know where your dad is, and it's like,
exactly. So I
yeah.
thought that was, it was good. It was good, like, I guess, play on sort of like emotions of the viewer, in terms of like, would the dad
Was that your favorite
come?
scene in the movie? This bus stop scene?
Um, probably. I was thinking if this was, or if like the few minutes of like looking for May and then the end part was.
Mm-hmm.
But one of those two
Yeah.
parts probably would be. Probably this one, just because I really like that, and then you get to see. I don't know if you wanted to say
Okay.
something real quick.
Yeah, I mean Sasuke meets Totoro, right? That's what you're gonna
Yes, Sasuke
say?
meets
Or
Totoro. Yeah, I
yeah.
was gonna bring that
Yeah.
up. So she meets Totoro, right? And we mentioned
Yeah.
that it was a little bit different than how Mei did. I would say. I mean, the first reaction of Sasuke is to like kind of try
She's
to
kind of
like.
scared, right? She's like
It seems like she's trying to avoid Totoro, like kind of like not
she's like maybe he won't notice me,
not
like
antagonize him or something, right? She's like, is this like
yeah.
really like it's so she
Yeah,
kind of
and
like
it's like you don't
barely
really
peeks
know.
over her shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't really know if like does she not want to interact with him because she is scared or because she doesn't want him to get scared of her. You know what I mean?
Probably both, because she doesn't want him to overreact to something she does, and then in turn, which would
Yeah.
scare her, right?
And you
So
can tell he's kind of a nervous dude, like the way that the
he
rain is like
is,
pattering on him.
and
And
it's kind of funny because I still after he met May, I wasn't sure if like if this if Totoro is gonna kind of like if he would ever kind of fly off the handle, so to speak, or like get angry, kind of. But then you kind of see in the scene, which I thought was kind of funny, and I didn't expect, was like when the rain like falls off the tree branches and hits harder than the rest of the rain. He kind of was surprised, or like
mhm.
kind of almost like surprised, and then eventually, or like confused, and then eventually like he thought it was kind of funny, or like kind of
Yeah,
fun.
you kind
So
of get this feel like that
yeah,
he's a gentle kind of creature. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, and then you kind of think, at least I did in that moment, when he like jumped really hard and had all the rain come down on him, like it was because it was
yeah.
so fun. Like
Yeah.
I wonder like how old, like at least how old is the mind of Totoro? Like in that,
Right,
that's
right.
kind of something you don't really know.
Yeah.
But the way he smiles so much, you know what I mean? Like the way,
Yeah.
like kind of like the over exaggerated way they make him
Yeah, and like
smile,
the kind of like,
almost
like
childish
he's
behavior at
interacting
times.
with children. Yeah, there it is again, right? Like
Yeah. So I wonder if he's sort of like I wonder how old he's, at least how old his mind is,
yeah.
as
Yeah.
Totoro. So that
Cuz
was
he
kind of,
can't I mean like he can't talk obviously, but he still
yeah,
has a personality like that you
yeah,
can
of course,
definitely
yeah, of
tell.
course, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um
I thought that was cool. I thought
yeah,
that was
and also he
interesting.
has like his little like leaf umbrella too to begin with,
Yeah,
like his little yeah.
and it was cool that Sasuke gave him the umbrella, the second umbrella that she had. I thought that was
Yeah.
a sign of like, from her side, like a sign of trust, I suppose,
Yeah, and
trust
it's
in
like
a
kind of
way.
like a friendship kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he was just
And
kind of happy, like he thought it was
yeah.
kind of cool. I don't know. And then he did the
Yeah.
whole rain thing.
And then
And
and
then
then
I was quite surprised at this. I don't even know what to think of this. We have, I'm not making this up here. We have like a cat bus show up, literally a cat in the shape of a bus, and Totoro just kind of casually walks onto the cat bus and drives away, and
yeah.
that's that.
Yeah, and
And
the way he walks onto the cat bus too is like he seems very sophisticated. The way he does, like holding his umbrella, he just like sits down. He's like, "Bye bye,"
uh,
you
I
know.
thought that was funny. And I don't know if this is kind of something I noticed at every point after this, but every time the Kappa showed up, and Totoro with his little spinny thing, right? They
Yeah.
always came with the wind, and it was always with a
Mm,
gust of wind. And I
yeah.
was like, like, are they like, is this imaginary to, or are they not able to be seen by adults because they're actually like the wind, but from the
Mm.
children's perspective, they can like
Oh
just
yeah, yeah,
see, they
yeah.
can just see them. I don't, just because they're kids, they can just see them.
I
I
feel
don't
like there
know.
was a storm earlier in the
Mhm.
movie too, right? Wasn't there?
There was, and there was a
Like
storm. Yeah.
yeah,
So, and then when Totoro later on lifts them off, we'll talk about that in a minute, and they go
yeah.
flying, like they go with a gust of wind, and you can see like the grass and like when they fly by.
Yeah, and the animation for that for like was really good, I think, for 1988 with just the drawing that they had with the
Mm,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
no, it was no. I never had a problem with like the quality of the animation. Yeah, for sure. I
yeah,
thought it was definitely
yeah.
solid through and through. But
Yeah. So, but we can talk about the cat bus for a second if you want.
yeah, we can talk about that for a second, and we can
Well, I
talk.
just wanted to say that, like, I think that's definitely the most kind of out there element because it's not just like, like
Sure.
something imaginary, like, oh, these little like soot sprites or like Totoro's like this big bear rabbit thing or whatever he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's an animal that's also a bus, right? That's like kind of weird, right? You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
No, yeah,
And
for sure, it's very weird.
um, but I think that like
Hmm.
I mean, I know in Japanese, like I looked it up, and in Japan, it says in Japanese folklore, cats have protective powers and symbolize good luck.
Hmm.
So I
Interesting.
don't know if that's like a thing that's supposed to be like if you see a cat, you're like, oh, that's a happy thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
um. So yeah,
sure.
I don't know. I
Well,
don't know
if
why they like. Why do they choose a cat, and
well,
why
if
do
you're
they choose? You know what I mean? Obviously, it's a bus because they were at the bus stop,
well, if you're
but
going off protect, like if you said right, it signifies like what protection,
protecting. Yeah,
protection,
yeah.
protectiveness. I
Hmm.
mean, the cat definitely, kind of
I
demonstrates
mean,
a
it
sort of
is.
protectiveness. It pretty much is because later in the
It
movie you
like
have.
encloses you. It's like
But
yeah,
I was also saying like it protects the kids.
it
Like
does.
it
Yeah.
literally, they brought them to May, right?
Hmm.
And I believe it also brought them to the mother, right? So you could say in a way like it protects the kids,
Yeah.
at multiple
Yeah.
points.
I
So I thought
wonder
that
if
was,
Totoro is supposed to be part cat. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's definitely possible, like with like I guess like the kind of like the whiskers, like the little like ears. It's definitely possible, but
Yeah.
it was definitely very, it was definitely very interesting this whole scene. And then I know you're probably looking up to see if Totoro is part cat or something, but I remember writing down that Totoro maybe he comes with storms or weather because that was
Mm.
constantly a thing. Um,
Yes, it is. It is.
so and then I was gonna move on from this
Yeah, we
unless you have
can.
something else to share. But I
Well, I was just gonna say that it says to make Totoro, they took a mixture of the look of owls,
hmm,
cats, and raccoon dogs. So
raccoon dog. What really?
yeah,
Interesting, interesting.
I guess a raccoon dog is an animal. Interesting.
Hmm.
Huh.
Okay. Well, so I guess they took a combination of a couple different animals, but that
Yeah,
is
but it
that's
wasn't
very
a bear
interesting.
or a rabbit like I thought. So
Okay. Well, I mean, Totoro definitely is kind of his own thing. It's not really you can't really. It's not really
yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
which is hard to do if you think about it. Like make a whole like new animal like that because your mind
Yeah,
automatically goes to animals that like cats or
yeah,
dogs or something that already exists. So I kind of applaud them for doing that. Something that like, you can
that's true.
immediately pinpoint.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a monster either, right? Like it seemed
Yeah,
like an animal. So
exactly. So it's unique in that way as well.
yeah.
But I wanted to move on to kind of something that kind of Connor sets the stage for the final act or final part of the movie, which is I believe they get a call or Sasuke gets a call, right? Or not a
Right.
call, a telegram. I'm sorry.
So before we talk about that, really quickly, I just want to address like the seeds that they
Okay.
get seeds from Totoro and then they plant them, remember? And there's that whole scene at
Oh,
night where they wake up
yeah.
and they go out there and they grow the trees with Totoro and they're all like doing
They're literally
the
like
up
this. Yeah, they're
motion.
like this.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And I thought that was a really cool scene.
It was all a dream.
Here's the thing though, is
I
that
think.
they
Had.
I'll address this later. We can talk about this in a minute, but then they
Mhm.
like fly around with him, and that's probably one of the like most boring parts for me as an adult watching this movie back is like when they're flying around with him and it's just like playing the music, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like they had fun, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's when you see Totoro's like spinny thing, and
Yes. It's so weird. It's so,
yeah,
and then that's when I noticed, he goes with the wind, and he like is the wind. Might be
yeah.
another thing.
And then they wake up the next day and there's no trees,
Nope.
but the
But
seeds have
the seeds have
sprouted.
sprouted. But you might have thought it might have just been enough days until the seeds sprouted, and they just happened to have that dream the night before.
But that's a big coincidence, you know what I mean? Like,
But that big tree that they grew was not there. It was not there. So I don't know. I feel like it
yeah, but
play.
like they had the same dream, both of them. Like, come on.
I don't know. See, it's interesting. It plays into from one side you think, oh, maybe it's all in their imagination, or oh, maybe the children can actually see something that the adults can't. it
Yeah.
definitely plays into both sides of that, you know. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because would they have the same dream, but also the big tree isn't there. So that's interesting.
But
But
then
yeah, so
Sasuke gets the telegram, which we
yeah,
can talk about it.
yeah. So this kind of leads into the final thing, and you know, she gets very nervous. Bless you. And she gets very nervous, and rightfully so. You know, you get a telegram when your father's at work that your mom, that the doctor for your mom wants to talk to your father. You know, that's never a good thing. That's never, or at least it's not normally a good thing. And you know, she gets rightfully very nervous, and you know, May, you know, is obviously kind of frustrated, but they both decide to go to, I think, was it the aunt's house or something, like the boy's aunt's house, I forget
Yeah,
whose house it
someone's
was,
house
to
because she
get
had a
to the phone.
telephone.
Yeah, to get the phone. So they run there, but they tell May to stay, and she
Yeah,
doesn't.
right.
And she doesn't
Which is
stay.
understandable from both sides, right? From both of the sisters' perspectives. Like,
It is, it makes
no, we're gonna
sense.
be faster than you. Stay. Like,
Mm.
this is important.
Like, you
But
can't
then
keep
from
up.
May's perspective, it's like, no, like this is the only
I
thing
want to
that
know what
matters in the
happens.
world to me. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, and you can tell she really cares about her mom, and obviously so. But you can definitely see it a lot from, you know, May's perspective throughout the movie. And so yeah, she makes the call. She talks to her dad. Her dad's like, "Okay, I'll take care of it. I'll call, and I'll call you back." And that's kind of what happens, right? And then uh, I think they know that the dad's going to go to the hospital to figure out what's, you know, or talk to the doctor, figure out what's exactly going on. And then you know, May, I thought she was going to be lost, but she somehow found her way back to Sasuke. It was unbelievable. She found Sasuke and the boy like walking out of the house, I believe, back on the road. And I was like, wow, this is some crazy coincidence. Well, lucky coincidence, honestly. And yeah, I guess you can think of this as a kid. If you ever
Yeah,
got lost, you know, you happen to luckily find your parents or like your siblings
yeah.
again. So that's good. So were you gonna say something?
Well, I was just gonna say like maybe she didn't go that far away. You know, she was in this general area, right? Like she just ran past the house, just barely missed them when she was chasing after them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also there was that scene where she ran into the goat. Do you remember that?
Yes, yeah, I remember that
I thought that
distinctly.
was interesting. Like,
Well, because I don't know if it was kind of like something, some sort of like image or metaphor for something like a little bit bigger, but like it was kind of just she it just showed how much she cared for her mother, I guess. I don't know. Like she's like, no, this isn't for you.
right? I do remember
This
her
is
saying
for.
that.
She said that she's like, this is for my mom. You can't have it. I
Yeah,
remember her saying that, and she held on to that the ear of corn real tightly for a long time.
she did.
And we can get into, you know, she ended up running away, or you know, she kind of just got her shoes on and left. She saw Sasuke crying because she didn't know what happened with her mother, and
Right.
she walked away from the
And so
house.
then in May's mind, she's like, I gotta like go see my mom, right? She's
Yeah,
like,
yep. And they didn't know where she would have gone for the longest time. They didn't know.
yeah.
They
And I think that it was also like, there's probably a part of May that's like longing for that independence also because she always has to stay with like the granny and like
Yeah. And she does. She
and
obviously
she
does. We didn't get into this, but she does not. She doesn't like the granny. She doesn't like being around her.
yeah, I think she just doesn't like the idea that she has to be babysat is what I think.
Maybe. I also think she just doesn't trust like someone she doesn't know.
Yeah,
As a young kid, you know, a lot of young kids are very shy with people they haven't met before, or like they haven't had a lot of interaction with. And I think you kind of see that there a little bit, right?
yeah,
You see
yeah.
that when she goes to the school with Sasuke, and you know, you see that
Hmm,
obviously at the
hmm.
end. But yeah, so she gets lost and she runs away, and I want to say Sasuke ran a long way, Connor, when she was looking for her sister in this end part. You know, she kept running and
Her feet were
running.
so dirty and like
And I think that's kind of, I thought that was kind of cool. Not cool is the wrong word, but I thought it was neat that she ran so far. She would go so far to find her sister, right? She
yeah.
would do anything,
Especially
right?
after they parted with like a fight, right? Like they
Right.
like yelled at each other.
hmm
So
Yeah, I mean, so I thought it was I thought that was really cool. You could see that you could again see like the sister connection and, you know, the
mhm.
sibling connection, and like
Yeah,
so
and
I
like as
thought
an audience
that
member,
was
you
really
don't know
cool.
what's happened to May either because now it's going
Yeah,
from Sasuke's
and she kept
perspective.
looking. She kept asking strangers like, "Have you seen a young girl come by this way?" They're like, "No, I don't think
No,
so." Like,
yeah,
right,
they're like no.
and you know they keep looking, and eventually, you know, she almost gives up. Right, she doesn't know what to do, so she goes and finds Totoro. Right, she goes and finds Totoro, and she's
Yes.
like I don't know.
Oh well,
I don't,
first of all, they find that shoe in the
They
lake.
do. I was gonna bring that up a little bit after, but yes, they do find that shoe,
And
and I thought it was her shoe.
I thought it was hers too, and but I guess it
Yeah,
was slightly different, and it was like it's kind of scary when you're watching it. You're like, wait,
yeah, it
what?
is. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
So that I thought it was her shoe. I thought that it was her shoe. I thought May had thrown her shoes off, like Sasuke took her shoes off when she was running.
Oh yeah,
I thought
yeah.
May had taken her shoes off and just left them there. So I thought it could have been her
Mm,
shoe. She still could have gotten,
right,
like she
right.
still could have gotten, kept going and gotten
Yeah.
away,
I
not
think
fell in the
that yeah,
water.
it would have been like a bit morbid though, like for the whole
Right?
movie. If people are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, she's dead," like you
Yeah,
know what I
I
mean?
was expecting that. I'm still at the end. I was expecting something bad, like really bad to happen, and it,
Yeah.
knock on wood, it didn't. They ended up Sasuke went to Totoro, right, and then she
Yeah.
ended up. He called the cat bus, and then she was in the cat bus, and she went all the way straight to May, and
Yes.
she found her. She found her, and I mean, obviously she was really relieved to see her, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting. She.
Yeah, yeah. This was actually the scene that I wanted to talk about, right? Was that it
Mm,
takes her to May and then it takes them to their mom, right?
yep.
And they don't actually go in and see their mom because their dad's down there, right? And like it would be like, "How did you get here?" And I don't know. They're
Mm,
like sitting up in a tree, and then they leave the corn though for her,
yep.
right? And this is why I don't think that it was imaginary, is because like how would they have actually delivered the corn without the help of the cat bus? You know what I'm saying? How would Sasuke
Maybe.
have found May
Yeah, they could have made a
and
perfect throw onto the windowsill. But you're right. It's
well, no, but
very.
I'm saying like how would they
Huh.
have made that trip?
Oh, yes, I know. Yeah, I know. The only
Yeah,
thing I could think of is like she just happened to, and actually, she actually knew exactly where May would be.
yeah,
I don't know. Like she like kept running on the road, and like she happened to find May,
yeah.
at some point on the road or whatever. But you're
Mm-hmm.
definitely right. That's definitely, it definitely makes it seem like these things are indeed real, and you feel that, especially at the end. And I wanted to talk about this. I thought you were talking about this when the mom says like I thought I saw Sasuke and Nay up in the tree.
Oh,
I was like,
I
okay,
forgot about that. Yeah.
so was this all real, right? Because it also reminds me of the end of Polar Express when the narrator comes on and he says, you know, I think he said, I heard the bell for the longest time. I think he said I still hear it, but my sister, she stopped hearing the bell after a few years. Like showing that like it actually was real. Everything that did
Yeah.
happen was real. Like Santa was real. Christmas, everything was real that they did
Right.
see on the Polar Express. Kind of similar to this, where the mom references like I thought I saw them. Like, so was this
Yeah.
all real? Or was it? And it leaves a little bit of a question in the viewer's mind. But I kind of feel like you have to lean towards that it was. You have to
Yes.
lean towards
Yes.
that it
I
was.
think it definitely leans that way. And
Mhm.
I think it's really interesting because even though it's from the child's perspective, like this whole movie, it doesn't mean that it's an imaginary story. You know what I mean? Like necessarily. And even though it's like kind of like fantastical and magical and stuff like that,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like super whimsical and okay, it's not like it has like immense stakes like someone could die or something, right? But
Mm.
you feel that the stakes are huge because of how the May and Sasuke feel like about each other and about their family and stuff like that,
Yeah.
like because they care so deeply about each other and their mom. It's like that's what kind of carries like the conflict of the story, right? And Totoro is just like a supplement to that, I feel like, you know what I mean?
Sure. No, yeah, he definitely is. I feel like Totoro kind of acts as a sort of catalyst is the wrong word, but kind of like a vehicle through which you can see like how much they care about both each other, right? And then also by
Mm-hmm.
extension, like their family, like their mother,
Yeah.
and and their father even, because May wants to show her father like, oh, this is real and everything, and they wanted to see their father at the bus, see him home from work. It's just little things like that. I guess it's kind of like makes it
Yeah,
easier
yeah.
to see that, in
Yeah,
both
it's
of them.
interesting, like because
Yeah,
I feel this movie is a lot about family
it is.
without being like a movie about a family, like a story of a family doing something. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I think it is a story about a family, but it also is a story about the magic of being a kid is kind of
yes,
what it is to me.
yes.
It's kind of both of those at the same time, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. So it makes it more
Hmm.
interesting than just a movie about a family, just kind of caring
Yeah.
about each other.
Or just a movie about a kid doing whatever and having his own little adventure or
Exactly,
her own
exactly.
little
So you
adventure.
get kind of a combination of the two. So you get a sort of overarching message of obviously there's different subplot, like different like kind of things that are within the movie, but
Yeah.
generally you get a thing of like overarching theme of like care about your family, or like,
Care about
don't
those who are
like,
close to you.
yeah,
Don't take them
like
for granted and like that kind of
exactly,
thing.
like
Yeah.
you don't know like who you're missing until they're like out of your life, referencing like,
Hmm.
the mother who might
Hmm.
have died, right? Or like May, who was missing, like they had just gotten in a fight, like you said, when she was missing. So all those things like that, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
It was pretty well done in terms of story or
Yeah.
plot.
And
And
then
yeah, sorry.
no, actually you go ahead because I think what I have to say would like be better to follow up what you have to say.
Okay, well, I was actually gonna kind of, because that was pretty much it in the movie. I was just kind of
Yeah,
wrap
yeah,
it up
yeah.
and kind of summarize what I thought of it.
Oh,
But
sure. Okay,
if you
well
want
then
to go
I'll
ahead,
just say
yeah, go ahead with
real
something.
quick.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say like because the movie is called My Neighbor Totoro, right?
Hmm,
Like that's what the movie's called.
sure.
So like
Hmm.
like why is it called that? If
Mm,
it's not really about Totoro, right? Like it's not really about him.
no, but I think that I don't know. I think maybe that like you also want to be close with your neighbor, so and like like
Yeah.
it helps you like, you know by vehicle be closer to your family. I'm not really sure,
Well, I think also like
care about other people, like, or like don't be afraid of meeting other people or doing other thing, like because Totoro is such a different like thing, or like
yeah,
unique thing, right? Like don't be afraid to see new things, or try unique things that might seem like scary,
or
or like,
be
right,
or
I don't something
or
like
be
that.
yourself almost, or I don't know, because what I was thinking is like my neighbor, like that's their perspective, like that's the child's perspective,
Oh,
right? He's their neighbor,
because
right?
he's
Like
in their
he lives
backyard.
next to them.
Mhm.
And neighbor doesn't mean like just that he lives next to them, but it's also that he's like a really like good friend and kind and helps them out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
um which I guess you can see with their actual neighbors like granny and stuff like that too.
Mm.
But I think it's like he's like such a special, like, I guess neighbor to have, right? That
Yeah.
and obviously I don't know like how well the word neighbor translates from Japanese to English, you know what I
Mm.
mean?
Sure.
Um, but without him, they wouldn't have been able to like visit their mom at the end, right? Like
Yeah.
thanks to him being like selfless, which even though he's like not really a character, it's like I feel like people can strive to be more like Totoro and like kindness and like genuine. Is genuineness a word? Gen-
I mean, genuineness, just, I guess, being genuine, I guess, just
yeah,
that's fine. Yeah.
yeah. It's
But
kind
no,
of like but he's kind of like the wizard leading the characters along. You know what I mean? He's not like the main character that it's about. So I just thought it was
sure.
interesting that the movie's named after him. You know?
Sure. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, definitely. Because yeah, the movie at the end of the day, I think, and I'll kind of summarize, my general thoughts here. It At first glance, I didn't think it was going to be all that um, substantive. I thought it was just going to be a fun movie about a family who kind of encounters some strange things in their house. You have some weird like things in your backyard, right? And I thought it would just be
Right.
kind of something like that, some magical, imagination thing. But it turned out to be that plus, obviously what we've talked about with the whole, family kind of stay connected, or stay, always care about your family, always like never try to like get disconnected or give up on your family in sort of way. And I thought that was interesting, and I thought that was well done. I also I really still like your point about the boy that was in the movie, how minor of a character he was, but how how important in a way, because it allowed some people who otherwise wouldn't connect anyone in the story to connect to someone, because there's two female protagonists, young female protagonists, and a lot of people, half the people in the world, who saw the movie might not be able to connect to the perspective of two young girls, in a movie. So
Right.
definitely, I thought
Which
that
is
was definitely
something that not a lot of movies take that into consideration. Sorry to hop
for
in, but I'm
sure.
just
No, it's
saying like
okay. Yeah.
obviously a lot of movies are male dominated and you don't have a lot of
Yes.
female perspective.
But I
So
also in
it's
go ahead. Yeah. Finish.
well,
Sorry.
so it's good to like see like
Yeah.
I mean like in this movie they have a lot of different perspectives.
Mhm.
And especially in the 80s in like an animated
Yes.
film, that's kind of cool to see. You know what I mean?
True. And I think it's also good because, as I said, I really like having different perspectives in a movie because it's very hard for me to get into a movie, to really enjoy a movie if I can't relate to someone in it. It just
Mhm.
makes it hard to fully like be like, yes, I care. I have an interest or a vested interest. I care about a character in the movie
Yeah,
or in the TV show. For me, it's kind of hard to do so. So
yeah.
because of that, I like this more than I thought I would. I thought the animation was well done. I wonder, and I would have preferred to be able to see a counterpart of the same movie with like same acting with actual live action people. I wonder if it
Mhm.
would have been better or worse. Taking out the fact that there'd be CGI, which obviously, how good or bad the CGI would be totally like, it would totally like affect how good or bad the movie was, right? But taking that out of account, like I wonder if it would just feel the same.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it would because you don't get the like kind of like I said, I really think there was some like over exaggeration towards like swings towards like at the beginning is very happy. Then you had like, some fear, some sadness or some anger. And I don't know if you can necessarily portray as like those as loudly, right, as you can in like animation, right, with like the
Mhm.
wide mouths when they laugh or like something like that, or like the big eyes that they can get or something like that, little things like that. I don't know if you can get that in a live action or a real acting movie. So I don't know, I think it's, and being animated was good for this kind of a movie, and I all in all I thought it was pretty solid. It was pretty good.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think you had a lot of good things to say there. Um, I
Yeah.
just wanted to quickly talk about the live action thing, which is like, that's a really interesting question that you pose. Like, how would it
Oh,
feel as a live
yeah,
action movie?
I really
And I
wonder.
think that, like it would feel a lot darker, I think, as a live action movie.
Mm,
That's just how I feel about it. And also, it's a little bit difficult to make creatures like they have in this movie look fun and whimsical in real life. You know what I mean? Like they would seem a little bit more like
clunky or
real and scary, a little bit just like I feel like more unsettling almost. Like even if
maybe.
you have good CGI, like seeing a real thing like that, I think is a little bit,
Yeah,
tricky.
yeah, of course.
Um, but yeah, I think that this movie has a lot of rather than being a movie that's just for kids, like I don't know, a good example is like like the Minions movie or something like that. That's just
Yeah.
like fun, like whatever, like just like turn off your mind and just relax. And I mean, obviously, it's not like a super complex, like intricate, like you have to think about it movie. It's not like Interstellar or something like that, right?
Yeah,
But I
sure.
think that rather than being a movie that's just like for kids, it's more so a movie about kids, right? So
Mm,
you can appreciate that from an adult perspective because you were once a kid and you can understand
yeah.
how like it would be feeling to be those Sasuke and Mei. And I
Mm,
think that it's good. I think especially for a family maybe to watch this film. I think that would be a really interesting like movie for families to watch because everybody might take something different away from it,
mm.
and it's it just has so many like we said so many perspectives and obviously the animation is great for 1988 and
Yeah.
I almost said 1888. I was
That would have been unbelievable.
yeah, I know, right? But yeah, and I also thought the music was really well done too. I don't
Mm.
know if you noticed the music at all, but I thought it was really
No, it was. It played into me to like the again, like I said, like the very
yeah,
big swings in emotion, I feel like at the
yeah.
very beginning the music was very happy and it just
Mhm.
yeah, yes, I agree.
Yeah, and the core of the movie is these girls move with their dad to the country. Their dad works in the city, right? The
Mm,
girls are trying to get used to their new life. Their mom is far away. Their mom isn't doing so well one day,
mm,
and one of them goes missing, and they eventually find her, and everything's okay, right? Like it's not
mm,
like super. There's not a ton of elements necessary to tell this story,
yeah.
right? So I feel like it's okay that there's so many like supplemental things, like with Totoro and like the boy who was like their neighbor. Like even though those things don't directly contribute
Yeah.
to like the plot of the movie, they all kind of have a way of supporting it. And so I feel like I would give it more of a pass than I would with another movie who has a lot of
Mm,
things that doesn't have to do exactly with the main plot of the film. Um, yeah, and then I mean, the only real thing that I was like that I can think of that would make me maybe knock down this movie a few points was that some parts are, some scenes are a little bit like not interesting. Like they go on maybe a little bit too long, or
Mm.
this the story as a whole. By the end, you're like, oh, okay, like okay, you know what I mean? It's like it
Yeah.
doesn't blow you away, but but it has a lot of heart to it, and I think that's what
Mm.
really makes it like a good film. You know what I mean?
Sure. No, yeah, no, it definitely is a solid film. And if I had to put a number on it, since I already kind of summarized it, I'd probably give it like an A, like a low B, because I would give it. I really like the message and like how it was done. But I still, I just, it's tough sometimes when it's just considered in another language, and I still would like to see how it is in live action, even if it might be worse. That's just kind of like a medium that I'd rather watch, but I still think the message was really well done, and I think that it
Mm-hmm.
was a solid movie. So I'd probably give it like like an 84, 85, probably. Like it's definitely a
Interesting.
solid movie that I'm not
Yeah.
disappointed in. Like I'm okay. I'm good with watching it, and like
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder if the how much like I like it more than you, obviously, but I
Mm,
wonder how much of that is due to the fact that I watched it as a kid, and so like now I can see it from a different perspective, and so
yeah.
like I just have a different. I don't want to say perspective again, but you know what I mean. Like I just have a
No,
different
sure.
outlook on it
Well,
than
yeah,
you do,
because I
and
mean, you saw it at a different stage, right? And
yeah,
yeah, so
yeah, and I think that I mean, um, I think that if I cut out a few scenes, it would be like a really great movie. And so for me, I think it probably sits somewhere around a 90%. Like I think it just barely gets into
yeah,
that A range,
that's
especially
fair.
for an anime film, because I don't really like those that much. So
Mm. Yeah, no, it's definitely fair. And I do wonder what someone who watches more like animated or anime films like
yeah, I
would
wonder if they would
would
like
give
it
the
more or
movie.
less than us. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it definitely depends on the perspective. But yeah, I mean, hey, those are some solid ratings. It was definitely
yes,
a solid
yes.
movie. Um,
We enjoyed ourselves this week. You know
we
what I
did,
mean?
yeah, of course, of course. And I do know, before you give any, like, before you wrap up, that we'll try to, right, correct me if I'm wrong, Connor, we'll try to do this, hopefully once a week, hopefully is kind of
Yeah,
the play,
yeah.
as long as and we should be able to. So, we're hoping to get back on a more consistent basis
Hmm.
after, a long,
A
a
long hiatus.
few months off, a long hiatus, but we have returned, and, we're excited to be back and do more of these podcasts. So hopefully we'll be back next week with another movie
Yes.
of my choosing this time. So it'll be interesting to see what I choose. I got to match Totoro, so we'll see if I
Hey, listen, one of these days we're gonna pick a bad movie, all right, and then it's gonna be
can.
fun.
Oh my gosh, we I don't think we had a really bad one since the Maze Runner, and even that,
Yeah, Maze
had
Runner
its
was
good
fine.
had its
Actually,
good
probably my
parts.
least favorite one was The Highwayman. That was probably my least favorite one, to be
Interesting,
honest.
interesting. It might have been
Yeah.
The Irishman for
I
me.
remember I gave The Irishman a 75%. I was watching that review today.
Oh man, yeah, that's yeah, it was just long. But yeah, it was good doing this podcast, and thank you everyone for watching.
Yeah,
And
let us know what you think of Totoro.
yes,
If
please.
you like
And
it, yeah, go check it out if you haven't, because I think it's worth watching, especially with like a friend or something, if you have someone to watch it with.
yeah, no doubt. Or watch with some family.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
with your
course.
little sister.
Yes, there you go. All right. Well, it was a good podcast, and we'll hopefully be back next
Yeah.
week with another one. So we'll see you
Peace
guys
out.
later.